You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today on our Total Wellness Tuesday, we're going to be talking about how a low-carb diet can equal low thyroid, which can equal hibernation syndrome. So what I want to do is I want to explain all of that today, who that it might affect the most, see if you're one of those people, and then talk about how can we get out of that state so that we can get healthy, that we can lose the weight if we need to, but also just make sure that we're balanced, that we're always firing on all cylinders. But before I get to the show, I really want to make sure that you tuned into yesterday's Motivation and Mindset Monday. It was one of my favorite shows of all time. I explained and talked a lot about my past, what I had to go through as well to really become the healthy, happy person that I am today. And really, it's what I'm teaching others, teaching my own children. It meant a lot to me. I do hope you check out that show. And again, I think that it will resonate with you as you listen to progression through that show. All right, let's get into today's show. So here's the issue with this. And again, I talked about a little bit yesterday, how my model for functional medicine, my concierge practice, basically, how I help people is a really hard type of practice to tell people about. People are like, well, what do you do? And it's like really hard because what it is there is no one thing. I call myself a bio-individuality health practitioner. I'm someone that helps you on a personalized level, which means that low carb can be good for some people, really bad for other people. But again, it's only because I've been such a skeptic and I've studied everything, all forms of medicine. And that includes conventional medicine, which I think is great in some instances. Naturopathic, orthomolecular, functional medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, Taoist medicine, Egyptian medicine, Greek medicine, the ancient Roman medicine, what they use for herbs, what they use in their practice. Again, that was a blend from Greek medicine as well, who formerly took from traditional Chinese medicine, who formerly took from Ayurvedic medicine. So, but they're different takes on the same thing. And so what I'm basically saying, though, is it's hard to explain until you realize that everyone and their body is a little different, okay? We have the same mechanisms, the same organs, and the same homeostatic systems, but how those operate on a deep level when they've been affected, when they become imbalanced, that's a little different. But a lot of people do not always, you won't hear, well, put it this way, you won't always hear my message in other places, and the reason is this. A lot of other books and gurus and practitioners, they try to tell you that there's one way. It's their way or the highway. And so right now, my message is not going to make a lot of low-carb, keto-based practitioners and doctors and people who have basically written a book or made their whole life about this very happy. And it's not my job, not my wish to make those people unhappy, but I have one commitment only, and that's to the truth. And that's it. It doesn't matter. So if I become unpopular because of this, if someone decides like, okay, well, you're no longer speaking at our event, that's okay. Because I have one purpose, and that's to bring you the truth. That's it. I have nothing to sell. If you never decide to do lab tests, you never decide to do the Dr. Ball Detox, use any of our high-quality nutritional supplements, that's okay. I'm okay with that because my first and foremost mission is to teach people what I've been able to learn over the years. And again, it's not my knowledge. I've assimilated it, yes. I've put it into a certain package, yes. But it's not mine to keep, not mine to hold on to. And that's what I'm about to share with you today. So again, we use low carb in our practice, but for a lot of people, it's leading to deeper issues when used for a longer period of time. Now, I hope you tuned into my last week's podcast. Again, I'm going to put everything in the show notes today. So always just go to stephencabral.com/podcast, and you'll be able to see all the previous shows. So what I want to say is this, though, is that I talked about how low carb diets can be dangerous in the long run. All right. We usually have people on them for no more than 4 to 12 weeks. It depends on the person, depends on the individual, and they can work great for weight loss. They can work great for reducing inflammation, but sometimes, and for a lot of people, and we know this is proven scientifically, there's research behind it, that it actually slows their metabolism, that it creates adrenal-based dysfunction, that it creates thyroid-based dysfunction. That's what I want to talk about today. It's not going to be a long show. I just want to take you through the actual systems of the body. I want to show you through science, but on like a normal real world speak level of how that works and why you might be struggling right now. If you've been on a low carb diet for a while, you might then realize, okay, here's why it worked in the short term, and it did work, but why it stopped working now. And again, no matter what, you have to understand, like if you're pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant, low carb diet, not smart. Really not a good idea. Research has shown that if you are pregnant, you need more carbohydrates, at least 100 grams a day. More like 175 is what's kind of stated. Again, that's arbitrary, right? If you weigh 100 pounds or 200 pounds, going to be really different for women depending on how many carbs they need. But at least we would say about 30% of your diet from carbohydrates. And we'll talk about what type of carbs a little bit later in the show. But you need that during pregnancy, because your unborn child needs it for fetal development in their brain, nervous system, and body. And they've shown that high protein or lower carb diets actually leads to less physical development. So we need those carbs. Also, athletes. Some athletes seem to do fine on a lower carb diet. A lot of times it is the endomorph. It's the larger body type. An ectomorph without carbs in their diet, really bad. And without carbs, I mean like at least that 100 grams a day, okay? What's 100 grams? It's tough to say, but it's about, we'll say 3 cups of carbs or so per day. And again, it's going to vary depending if it's broccoli or sweet potatoes. Like it is different depending, but if you look at it, like a cup of blueberries is like 25 grams, just rounding of carbs. So if you had 4 cups of blueberries per day, that would be about 100 grams per day. Of course, you're not going to eat just 4 cups of blueberries, but that's how you can look at it. And we'll talk about we can talk about lower glycemic ones and all that a little bit later, okay? But the other part is this. The thyroid specifically, and a lot of times in women, it's true that this affects women a lot more than men, but it does affect men because I look at lab work all the time, is that when you're on a low carb diet, some people, and it's not a small amount. That's why I did the show. This isn't for 1% of the population. This is for a fair amount of people. What happens is a lower carb diet leads your body to think that it's in a stressful period of time, that there might be some type of famine because you're missing a macronutrient. You're getting your protein and fat, but what happened to your carbohydrates? What happened to glucose? What happened to your body's primary fuel source? It's gone. You took it away because you were on a plan that told you not to eat carbs, okay? Or that told you to keep your carbs to 50 grams per day, whatever it might be. And again, in the short term, we do it as part of our Fatlocity plan and part of our Dr. Cabral detox for the first 21 days. And it works fantastic. It works great. But then we teach people how to ease off of that. That's where most diet plans are missing. That's what they're missing. They don't teach you the phase 2, the phase 3. They don't teach you how to ramp off of that. I did that for free last week on the Cabral Concept. You don't have to buy a book. I taught you how to do it in about 10 minutes. That's it. So you can check out that show. So here's the thing though. When we're under stress, our body produces more cortisol. So the hypothalamus in the brain, the pituitary gland in the brain, tells your adrenal gland, hey, we're under stress. Let's produce more cortisol. I've talked about this before on the show. What happens when you produce more cortisol and epinephrine as well from the adrenal medulla and cortex? What happens is this. You get a slowing down of metabolism. You get a slowing down of thyroid function, which obviously coincides with your metabolism. Why does that happen? Because your body's in a protective state. That's what we call the hibernation syndrome, the hibernation state. Your body purposely slows metabolism because it's missing a food source that it would like to keep its metabolism high, its brain function high. And again, some people do fine with low carb. I'm not saying that, but a lot of people don't. And for those people, you can see it on their lab work. You can literally just run. I mean, we honestly, these aren't even our labs. So when people say like, or when I'm trying to promote a particular lab, they're not our labs. So I'm not promoting like a Stephen Cabral lab. What I'm doing is I'm giving you just the opportunity on StephenCabral.com, and you just go to the store tab, to purchase a lab that isn't ours, to show you the underlying root causes, the dysfunction of your body, to show you why the state you're in. Then I read your lab, I explain it to a health coach who then does a coaching call with you and explains it to you. That's our service that we provide. But this lab, so it's called the weight loss testing package. It should probably be called the hidden hormone imbalance lab test. And the reason is it looks at everything from your adrenal function to your thyroid function, T4, T3, TPO to look at Hashimoto's, TSH, of course. It looks at vitamin D. It looks at blood sugar. It's an amazing lab. It's not just for weight loss. Because believe it or not, you can actually have low thyroid without a lot of the weight gain. You can just feel tired and have brain fog and be sluggish. So it's not just for weight loss testing. Maybe we'll rename it in the future. But the lab calls it weight loss or weight maintenance, so we're going to call it that, okay? Again, we're not marketers. We're just functional medicine practitioners who have a concierge wellness-based practice in Boston that we then try to bring this to people all over the world. That's our goal. That's just what we're trying to do. But this lab tells you if you are adrenal compromised, meaning like you get into adrenal fatigue, or you are low thyroid, hypothyroid, Hashimoto's, it tells you that. It's an amazing lab test. Again, we'll link this up in the show notes. You can just go to today's show notes page. Okay, so before I go any further, let me just give you the show notes page just because I know that a lot of people don't listen to this, which is not ideal the day that it does come out because, again, I try to build off of all of these things. But you can just go to StephenCabral.com/425. This is episode 425, and I think I mistakenly actually said it was a Total Wellness Tuesday show in the beginning, but it's actually a Weight Loss Wednesday show. The issue is that I will never make a weight loss only show without talking about wellness. It's impossible. Anyone that tries to sell you something weight loss based without talking about rebalancing the body from a wellness based level, because it's the only reason anyone would gain any weight is unless they become imbalanced. So anyway, apologize about that. So let's go back now to just summing up this hibernation syndrome now. So what I talked about is that lower carbs can create something called that famine-based state or the hibernation-based state. And the reason that happens is simply because your body starts to produce more stress hormones because it believes that it is in a state of famine or a time of stress. So it produces more epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. It produces more cortisol. That starts to slow thyroid because a increased hypothalamus pituitary adrenal drive or stress-based state in most people will start to lower thyroid, especially in the larger body types like the endomorphs. That's obviously where I see it a lot. Now, in the other body types, it causes all sorts of other dysfunction as well. Not always weight gain, okay? Because again, it can cause that brain fog, which it did for me. It can cause that sluggishness, the grogginess, any of those things, really hair loss, any of those things. It really does cause that. But one more reason before I close up the show is that low carb also can cause gut dysfunction. Very few people make that connection. I probably shouldn't do it on today's show, but I really want to. I'll talk about it more in depth in the future. We'll just keep it at that. Is that when you aren't giving your body at least like 2 to 4 cups of good veggies or fruit per day, what happens is that you're not getting any good prebiotics to your gut. So a lot of people on these low carb or keto-based diets is not good for their gut. And again, there's published research behind this, is that you need veggies and fruit as good prebiotics to feed the good bacteria. And when you feed the good bacteria, it creates immune balance from good bacteria balance. Remember, I've talked about it before in the show. I talked about Firmicutes and Bacteroides, and those two specific bacteria are what help people keep the weight off as well. People with higher Firmicutes typically become obese. And until you balance those bacteria in the gut, you're not going to be a healthy, happy individual either, because again, it affects the psyche, the physiology, your gut, and that second brain, which is your gut, goes all the way up through that vagus nerve to the brain and affects that function as well. So again, I've talked about all these things on previous Cabral concepts. Just go to StephenCabral.com/podcast. You'll see the specific strains that we use in our practice to help with weight loss. Again, you can just go to Daily Probiotic Support. That's the one on our store. You can just look at the strains. You can look at the research. You can see the science and how it actually helps. And it's like $1 a day. So these aren't expensive things to do where you can start to help rebalance your body to lose weight. So we're going to keep it at that today. I just want you to understand that if you did well on a low-carb diet, this goes so much into yesterday's show. Again, check out yesterday's Mindset Motivation Monday because it talked about who you are today is not who you may be in 12 weeks from now, and certainly not in 12 months from now or 12 years from now. You are changing and you need to adapt. The big thing is this: low carb could have worked for you and it could have worked fantastically well, but you just missed that transition point of adding more carbs back in your diet. And again, you can go back to my last podcast on transitioning off of low carb diets to tell you how to do all of those things. So what's your action plan for today? Well, one, you might want to transition right away off that low carb diet, or two, find out where you're at right now. Do the weight loss test. It's a great test. You'll never regret looking at data inside of your body. If it's too expensive, then fine. Do something like the Dr. Cabral Detox, or find a good 21-day plan, a good 30-day plan, whatever it might be, whatever works for you. Okay? Do that and then transition off of it. So basically start from scratch. Whatever plan you do, have a refeeding meal, a lot of carbs, okay? Do that for like a week or so. Yes, you'll gain a little bit of weight, but you're going to lose it when you go back to a plan that has a low carb and then it increases you based on you as a person, right? So you get to learn how many carbs you can add back in your diet. I'm going to keep it at that for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into another Cabral Concept, and be sure to tune back in tomorrow for another Cabral Concept. Take care, everyone.
Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.